Hi, my name is Javier, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the discussion held this past Wednesday in Mr. McCubbin's class. So, in the discussion, we talked about two documents. The first one was the Fort Hill Address, and the second one was the Nullification Proclamation. I read the Fort Hill Address, so that's the one I'm more of an expert of. So, the Fort Hill Address was issued by John Calhoun, and it talks about two major topics. The first one is nullification. So you might be asking, what is nullification? Nullification is the right of a state to declare federal laws as null if it considers them to be unconstitutional. And the second issue was distribution of powers. So I don't think there needs to be much explanation on that one. The name says it all. So the power needs to be distributed between the state and the federal government. So the states should worry on addressing local issues, while the federal government should worry on addressing issues that concern all the states. What amazes me most about this document was that it was issued by John Calhoun, and John Calhoun was vice president of the US at that time, and in the document he kind of questions the authority of the federal government. So, well, moving on. I remember that during the discussion, Mr. McCubbin asked me if I thought that Calhoun was for or against the Union of the States. I remember that I answered that he was for the Union because by issuing this document, he was going to prevent the federal government from gaining too much power. So, in simple terms, he was going to prevent it from becoming a monarchy. But now that I look at it again, maybe he was against the Union because in the document, he's asking for states' rights. So, I had a question that I had, but I didn't have time to make in the discussion, and it was like, how would you compare a state wanting more rights and a territory wanting to separate from a mother country? So in essence, it's the same thing because both want sovereignty. I think that the reason why this document was written is logical. So it was issued in response to the Tariff Act, and this Tariff Act imposed taxes on imported goods. So if you look at it, at that time, it damaged the southern states more than the northern states because the northern states favored a domestic production while the southern states depended more on importation and exportation. In the document, Calhoun also states that the federal government should only create laws that benefit all states. So if a law is created and it only benefits some and it doesn't benefit others, then that's the time when those states have the right to nullify the federal laws. But if you really look at it, it's merely impossible to create a law that benefits all states. So I remember I also brought this up in the discussion that for a community to work, for a system to grow, sometimes you'll have to endure tough stuff. You won't always receive what you want. I personally am in favor of nullification. I think it's a great idea. However, the question I have is until what extent do state governments have the right to declare federal laws as null? Because with this power, maybe in the future there will come a time when the states simply won't want to follow federal laws just because it doesn't benefit them. But as I stated earlier, for a system to work, I mean, you will have to endure tough stuff. Another thing that I find about this document is that I think it deepened the tension between the northern and the southern states. So the northern and the southern states differ in three aspects, and we mentioned those in the discussion. The first one was the politics. So the northern favored a stronger central government, while the southern states favored stronger state governments. The second difference is the economy. So the northern favored more domestic production. What is produced there should be consumed there, and the southern favored more importation and exportation of products. And the third major difference is slavery. The North is against slavery, while the South is for slavery. However, in this document, Calhoun does make it clear that the Constitution is above all. So it even mentions that the federal government cannot have powers that aren't delegated to it. So by the way I see it, I think he's in favor of a strict interpretation of the Constitution. That's all for this document. As for the other document, I mean, I didn't really read it, but of what I understood about it by what Jimena and Sandy said, I understood that it came in response to the Fort Hill Address. So this document was issued by President Andrew Jackson, and Andrew Jackson wasn't necessarily against nullification, but what he wanted to portray in this document was that states still didn't know how to use nullification correctly. This relates back to the question I posed earlier, which was, until what extent do state governments have the right to declare federal laws as null? Right? I wish we had a little bit more time to discuss these two documents, but that was it. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you later, mister. Bye.